genre.
In the world of Hollywood, movies get greenlit and redlit. They get remade and rebooted. But we are the Ideal. I'm Sam Gasch, and you are listening to Ideal Remake. Thank you for listening to Ideal Remake. We take movies that either have been, will be, or should be remade and talk about what the ideal version of that remake would be. Today, we'll remake a movie so high up on my list of movies to remake that we may as well rob God while we're up here. And stuck in this heist with me, whether he likes it or not, is Norman Mitchell. So, Norman, is 2000's Dungeons & Dragons a movie that has been, will be, or should be remade?
Well, it has been kind of remade, I guess.
Sort of, yeah. So I guess technically, yeah, it has been.
But yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, I would say it has been. I haven't seen the new one yet, but I still would say that it kind of has been. Because, I mean, it's a D&D game, right? So anything can happen.
Absolutely. I should say for context that this episode is going to drop, I think, the end of May, but we're recording it April 8th. So the Dungeons and Dragons movie just came out. Norman has not seen it. I have, which is a weird thing for me because normally I'm the one that hasn't seen a movie. It's
Well, there you
good.
go.
This movie is bad.
It is. I
This
agree.
movie's so bad. Had you seen it prior to this watch?
I have. I had a friend in high school that like really, really liked this movie. So like I've seen it more than a handful of times, but there are still things I kind of forgot about because it's been like, I don't know, 15 years since I've seen this movie.
This was still very much described to me as the Marlon Wayans movie. And I'm like, okay.
I disagree.
Yeah. I mean, he's in it.
He's in it. He's some of the better things in it.
And he's playing a caricature, and he's some of the better things in it.
Yeah.
Because he's trying.
Yeah, he's trying, but he was like very much typecast into like what they wanted him to do in this movie.
Yeah.
And by the year 2000, some of it was already kind of getting tired, I think, in the popular consciousness.
I mean, it's a very 90s movie that technically did not come out in the 90s.
It's wild to me this was distributed by New Line a year before they distributed Lord of the Rings Fellowship of the Ring.
Really?
Yeah, it's New Line distributed this movie.
That's
And a year later,
wow.
they distributed Fellowship of the Ring.
That's that's a hell of a glow up.
Right?
that's
think about
insane.
The special effects change.
Yeah.
It matters who's working on that.
I was on Dueling Genre Tonight this morning, and Scott said something that I didn't know, but this is apparently one of the last movies where they didn't have the budget to finish the special effects, so they just shipped it out as is.
Oh, well, that explains more than a few things.
It explains some things, but I'm going to be honest, it doesn't explain all that much, because I don't think the issue is with the bad graphics.
They are bad, though.
Absolutely, they are. They're not Last Starfighter bad, but they are bad.
Yeah, but Last Starfighter is a charming movie.
It is. It tries very hard to be very sweet, and the bad graphics are distracting, but that's not the actual issue with that movie.
Nope.
Same that it's not the actual issue with this movie either.
No, this movie's just not great.
Yeah, the issue with this movie is the direction, the writing, the acting, the racism, and the sexism.
Yep.
But once you can ignore those 5 things, it's a charming delight with blue lipstick.
Right? I found a handful of bright spots in this movie, but only a handful.
Yeah, I don't think it's worthwhile for us to like go through step by step, but
no.
But
I don't think the plot is the problem with this movie.
No. Briefly, what happened, like the nature of this movie is there's the haves and the have-nots, and what the haves have is magic, and what the have-nots don't have is magic. You know, the thing fundamental to a fantasy setting. It's fine.
Yep. It's classism.
Yeah, it's classism in a movie, which I can tell you right now isn't really what the new movie's about, and it's better for it.
Also, this movie doesn't address it in any meaningful way. Like, it talks about it,
true.
But it never shows it to you, really. It's all talk and no show.
And, like, the one character who is a mage that's with them never does any actual magic.
Very little. She casts 3 spells in the whole movie.
Yep. And whenever I'm playing a spellcaster in any setting, that's all I do. I barely walk.
I stand around and look scared.
I mean, I'm made out of tissue paper, but I'll cast a hell of a spell.
Right.
It's like
Man,
you got to do the cantrips, you got to do the healing touch, you got to do all the things.
you gotta do all of it,
Yeah.
and she does none of it.
So I guess I should, instead of like really, because that's really at the end of the day the movie. It's like, oh, it's two thieves. It's Ridley, whose last name I swear to God is Freeborn, Ridley Freeborn, and Marlon Wayne's character Snails. They go, they break in, they're doing a robbery, but it's at the same time the bad guys are taking over. They're fighting over getting the magic stick to control the dragons. Good guys versus bad guys. End of movie. Norman, I feel like I should take a step back and actually ask you this question: what's your history with D&D?
I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons since around the time that this movie came out.
Pretty
Actually,
good. Are you typically a player? Are you typically dungeon master? Do you go back and forth?
I've gone back and forth a lot. Actually, not long before we are recording this, I guested on an episode of the Protagonist podcast talking about storytelling in role playing games, where I
Oh,
go like
fun.
pretty in depth about like my history with role playing games and stuff on that too. If anyone
Nice.
wants to listen to that more in depth,
Well, then, in lieu of having you repeat yourself, let's just say go listen to the Protagonist podcast. I presume that episode is out by now.
it came up about a week ago now.
Perfect. Okay, great. So scroll back to April, about April 1st, and you should listen to Norman's full story on role
On the
playing
Protagonist
games.
podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's great. Perfect. Protagonist podcast. That's our plug.
it worked out.
I didn't really play any Dungeons and Dragons or role playing games in high school. When I was in high school, freshman year, we played Risk during free period. And then we got into like Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, which is kind of more where I've lived the vast majority. Like I still play Magic. Former guest of the show and friend of mine, Claire Mulcairn, is my first DM though, and she ran the game that I played whenever I was back home from college. And I actually didn't learn on Dungeons and Dragons. I learned on a different setting called Savage Worlds, which has a different like dice mechanics for leveling up and that sort of thing. I sort of prefer it, but I think that's just because it's what I had first.
I mean that's kind of like a thing that a lot of people have is they just kind of prefer whatever they played first for a role playing game because
Yeah.
it's kind of how they got used to integrating like game mechanics to the
Hmm.
improv thing. So then it's
Yep.
just kind of stuck in their head that way forever.
Yep. That is 100% true. But I've since played a bunch of role playing games. I played at a bachelor party recently. I played on a one shot that probably isn't going to come out until July or August for a different podcast. I'll plug it when it does. But yeah, tabletop games are fun, everybody. You should be playing them. And you know who agrees with me? Chris Pine. And he seems like a smart guy.
I keep seeing the little clips of him talking about being like, I fell in love with it. This was awesome. Everyone should do this.
I mean, yeah. He his journey just getting nerdier and nerdier and nerdier is a delight to watch. I love all of it.
Right. I imagine he must have read a bunch of Wonder Woman comics when he was in Wonder Woman too. He just seems
Oh,
like the
for
kind of guy
sure.
that did.
Yeah.
Wait, this role has like a 50-year history. I'm going to go learn some of it.
I mean, I'm not doing anything for these next couple of hours. I can read some comics.
Yeah,
It's a tax write-off.
it's true.
Yeah. So then I guess the real question is, in terms of talking about this movie, let's start simple. What are the things from this movie that you're interested in keeping?
So, kind of like the bare bones plot of this, I think is fine because I think the idea of like thieves getting caught doing something, getting wrapped up into like something bigger, like feels really D&D. And I think like
It does.
just
That's why it's the plot of the new movie.
there you go. So I think that just like event to event, the plot of this movie makes sense.
Yeah.
I think that the character archetypes are salvageable. I just think that the script is bad. I
Hmm.
just they all have bad lines. They're not read well. I think the actors, most of them don't seem like they're trying. So I think that like if the dialogue was better and the actors were better, I think that most of this movie works just at a plot level. But it's like it just doesn't because the only person in this movie that's trying 110% is Jeremy Irons.
Yeah.
Uh, and he's only on screen for like a total of 15 minutes.
And he's trying so much that it's now to the point of parody that like
Right,
he leaves everyone behind so much that everyone thinks he's not trying.
right. And then there's a couple bright spots with Marlon Wayans in this movie too. Like
Hmm.
he's very much typecast in this movie, but there are like places where what he's doing just works. Like his one-on-one confrontation with Damodar, most of that works for me.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I like he's playing a caricature, but when he's outside of the caricature, I think he's doing an excellent job.
Right. I think that I can't remember her name right now. I think the actress that plays Marina is also just like really not treated well by the script. She doesn't have
Oh
anything
no.
to do because she is definitely better than this.
Yes. That actress's name is Zoe McClellan.
Yes.
And like there's a moment when she's been captured. She's not using any magic because despite the fact that she's a wizard.
They kind of go out of the way to show that like she can't do magic without a spell component pouch, but they never actually say it. But they do show that twice, where like she scrambles to pick up the pouch with like the magic powder in it.
Yeah. I mean, she scrambles to pick up the pouch with the dark magic powder in it.
Right.
She uses it to like blast Damodar off of snails,
Right.
and then doesn't use it anymore.
Right.
Or
And
no,
then
I
she
guess she
opens the
makes a
portal and then they're
portal.
gone.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
opens a portal. You're right. There's a moment when she's captured and she's being interrogated, and that feels very much like a rape scene.
Yeah, it's framed that way for sure.
And it's just like this is not okay.
No. I mean,
And
it's her mind is being invaded.
her mind's being invaded by the monster that is holding Damodar's life in check.
Right.
I didn't
It's
completely
already in
follow
his
that.
mind and it's invading her mind and it ultimately answers back to Jeremy Irons.
It answers back to Jeremy Irons because, like, he gets like Damodar gets the information, goes and gets the thing, and then goes and gives the information. Goes and gives the thing to Jeremy Irons.
Right. Like, but the monster in Damodar's head is something that Jeremy Irons
Oh
controls.
yes, is it though? Because
I think so.
in
Well,
that
he
scene,
puts
it
it in
seemed
him
like
and then he takes it out.
yeah, but like in that scene, it sure seems like Damodar's controlling the monster.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that that's just not well put together.
No, I mean, like the one thing that they're doing is like over the course of the movie, Damodar is getting like more and more inflamed and
Right.
red because he's like being killed from the inside by this monster. And then he uses the monster to get information, which like I could be like, okay, great, he's giving into this monster, he's becoming more monstrous. But then when he finally
Right.
turns the staff to control the red dragons over to Jeremy Irons, and he's like, "You promised you'd set me free," and Jeremy Irons is like, "You're right, I did promise that," and then sets him free.
Yeah. Just
Which I'm
lets him
like,
go.
it's that's your honor among thieves right there.
Yeah. I actually think it would have been a better villain thing for him to be like, "You're right, I did," and then just like walk away. Like, I think that that would have been great. It would have made me laugh, actually.
That's what I was expecting because that's the villain thing to do. And then he
Right.
did like the thing that he promised, which is wild to me.
Yeah.
I think it would have been interesting if it had been, you're right, I did promise to set you free, and then he kills Damodar, and it's the monster that was inside that has been set free of being inside Damodar.
That'd be interesting too. I could see that.
Something something other than just I made a promise and now I've kept it. I'm a good villain.
Lawful evil.
Lawful evil. Despite the fact that the entire rest of his character is very chaotic.
Right? Just hamming it up every step of the way.
So there's this Empress Savina, who has a staff to control gold dragons, and the Jeremy Irons wants her to give that up so that secretly he can take control of the kingdom, but also because it's too much power for one person to have. And she wants to use that power to redistribute magic to everybody else.
To treat everyone equally. Ah, how dare her.
Yeah, seriously. And then it's like, and then she says no, and then they like, all right, great, we're the wizards, we're gonna divide up in 50. You go to team A, I'll go to team B, and then we're gonna fight and kill each other. Sound good? Sound good. Great, fight.
Oh, dragons, damn.
Yeah, dragons.
And there's even a dungeon in this movie. We got both.
Oh, that's true. Good for them. What else would you keep? So you want to keep the basic plot structure of thieves get embroiled in a thing.
Yeah, and I think that these character types kind of work and they could be served better. I do like most of the kind of design work on this movie, not counting the unfinished CGI. I think most of the costuming like feels appropriately fantasy. I like the look of a lot of the sets in the movie. I actually like the score. Like it doesn't it does what it's supposed to do. Like it feels very fantasy. I think it works.
Yeah,
Could it be better? Yeah, absolutely. Like that's true of everything in this movie. But like I think the score mostly does what it needs to do here. Nothing stands out as like sounding wrong to me. But overall I think like the production design on this movie is fine and the bare bones plot is great. I really just think that 90% of this movie's problems just stem from like bad dialogue and actors like not being invested in what they're doing. It's what it
yeah.
seems like.
And points for like aesthetic design, like they were trying. Like this is like the one movie that's ever been allowed to film in the Sedlik ossuary, that bone church in the Czech Republic.
That's huh. Interesting.
It's like the one movie, and then this movie filmed there, and then they were like, we will not be allowing this to happen again.
Never again.
And like you see pictures from inside this church, and you're like, this church is so cool. It is literally just full of. It is just it's a bone church. It is a church made of bones. It's
That's
insane.
cool as hell.
Yeah, it is the most metal place in the world, and it's a church.
Wild times a few hundred years ago.
Yeah, seriously. I tentatively agree with you. I think that the nature of the movie as itself isn't necessarily a problem. I think that there's a lot of little things that it does very poorly. Like for example, they rescue this map, and then it turns out that the person who had the key to get inside the map is our protagonist. Our protagonist is the most Mary Sue character I've ever seen.
Yes. I don't like to throw that term around, but yes.
I only like to use it to describe male characters.
I see.
For those that don't know, a Mary Sue is basically someone who's good at everything. Batman, for example.
Yes. Someone's good at anything with like very little explanation in the plot as to why.
Yeah. Our main character in Dungeons and Dragons, which fundamentally should be an ensemble movie because it's a party.
Right.
And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If it's a solo play Dungeons and Dragons where it's just you and one person in the DM, what you end up with should feel like The Mandalorian, because I in my heart believe that's what that show is.
That makes sense.
And but this was like, we have everyone else. This one person can go do the thing. This one person has all the answers.
Yeah, that's those are the big parts of the plot where it like feels like why are we doing this? And then like
But
the elf and the dwarf don't do anything to
nothing.
like serve the plot at all.
Norda and Elwood Gutworthy. But yeah, they don't do nothing. But what I was gonna say is like there's a moment where they rescue this map. Ridley for some reason has the magic words to get into the map, and then he and Marina go in the map, get information, and we don't see any of that.
Right. And it's something that like bonds them together in some way that we have no insight on,
Yeah.
which is a bad choice
Yes.
story-wise.
It's like it what should happen is we should go into the map with them. They go on this whole little mini quest, and then they come out, and then they get out of the map and are surrounded by the end of a battle, and they're just like, and
Right.
Snails is like, never leave me again.
Right. Like they should come back up in the woods like they do in the movie, and every like Norda and Elwood and Snails are like a little beat up, but they got away. But like they have to explain to them what they just went through. But we should see what they went through because it should be the thing that we get to see where Marina's character flips from like coming from the Majocracy like down to him.
The Majocracy. That's great. Presumably, this trip is also what convinces Ridley to be like of help. Like it convinces Ridley
Right.
to be like, oh, I should be going and helping this class of people who I've spent my entire life hating.
Right.
But also, it subtly hints that Ridley himself also comes from magic because he had magic words, and like his dad was a wizard or something, and like we don't get any of that.
Right. Never comes up again.
It never comes up again. It's just, oh, someone needs to have a skill. Ridley has it.
Yeah.
hmm
Makes sense.
Ridley has what I like to call Jonathan Taylor Thomas hair, the most 90s of all hair that I personally am a big fan of and like to have it myself in my own life.
There you go.
And
Yeah,
as we all
he's
know,
like the most generic 90s
oh, yeah,
90s looking protagonist for a movie that came out in 2000.
I agree. And that is my vibe. um, but so my pitch to change that a little bit is it's basically just like it's a majocracy. They're the people. It's the haves and the have-nots. But you can't restrict magic in D&D. It just doesn't work like that. So my pitch as like a slight tweak to that is that it's not that they're just restricting magic just generally. It's not that just like they're the only ones who have these skills. It's that what they're actually restricting are the components.
That makes sense. They're controlling resources.
Yeah, so they're controlling the resources. And obviously there are some components like druids or whatever, like nature-based classes like, oh, I need a leaf. you can't have access to all leaves. That's fine. But there are some things that's like you need this kind of pepper or this kind of thing or a little bit of gold, a little bit of that.
Right.
The I could see a real line in the sand between the technologically based magic and just the pure wild magic
Right.
in a very Owl House way, though not intentionally.
Right, yeah, if you treat it like civilized magic is like there's all
Yeah.
these structured rules and
Hmm.
hierarchies and everything they have to follow, and this is the way, and they're the ones in charge, so they
Hmm.
keep it that way.
They control the civilized components and the what's it called when someone has a magical artifact that they use to channel their magic through
Focus.
their focus, and they control the focuses.
Yeah.
That would be my simple pitch to be like, okay, we can still have haves and have nots, which is something very distinct to this movie and isn't really a component of the new movie. And I think that's what we should do.
Yeah. I feel like whoever wrote this movie, that comes from being like, well, we want our main characters to be thieves. So
Hmm.
why would there be thieves in a world where magic is like free flowing and available? And then like I think that's where the idea kind of
Yeah,
stemmed from. Because if they could get magic, then like magic can just like make so many people's lives easier. Why do we have these thieves? Like what's happening here?
yeah,
What got us here? Also, like magic worked a lot differently in older editions of D&D, and I can
right.
see how older editions would lead to a world like this.
Okay, that makes sense. I don't really know how magic worked in previous editions. I watched a Ginny D breakdown of this movie, and I think she says that this came out the same year that third edition came out,
Yep, it came out the same year as 3.0.
3.0, and that was well received.
Well, 3.5 came not that long after because 3.0 was full of mostly kind of like publication issues, but also like just some stuff that was seen as like really terribly balanced by
Hmm.
most players of the game immediately. 3.5 came out like less than a year after the launch of 3.0. There was a
Got it.
pretty major revision of the game. But
Eh,
3.0 was after second edition had been out for like 24 years, from
mhm.
like 76 to 2000.
Interesting. Does 3.0 or 3.5 talk about using beholders as just regular grunt guards and then they don't do
No.
anything?
No, beholders are supposed to lore-wise, like beholders are generally like megalomaniacal narcissists that believe they're the only thing that's real.
Really?
Yeah, like
I didn't know that.
they're paranoid, they hate everything that isn't them, including other beholders. That's like one of the things like beholders is a monster.
How do they breed?
I don't know.
I
I
guess
don't
they get
really want to
over it.
know. I actually have a
Oh,
book that would probably tell me. I have a book from 3.5 that's like about the major aberration types and like talks about their biology and stuff.
oh yeah. I remember reading something somewhere about how a beholder comes into existence, and they're not sexual beings. It's like some sort of thing has to happen in the world, and that gives birth to a beholder. But I don't remember what it is.
Yeah, I don't either. It's been a while since I read over Lords of Madness from 3.5. I'm sure that talks about it in detail.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Beholder is it's like Mike Wazowski without arms and legs, and it floats, and it has a bunch of tentacle eyes on top of its head.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it can fire a whole bunch of lasers at you without warning.
which is very fun because I only think of it in terms of that one episode, the bureaucracy episode of Futurama.
Perfect. As you
Yes,
should.
absolutely. Right. So what we have is we have a couple of thieves. So I think if we restrict the components of the world and the other things that people need to do magic, is you can have Marino lose her components, and because they're so restricted, she can't get them back. But I feel like her arc would be learning to use the more natural elements and the natural components available in the world to attempt to do some of the same styles of magic that she wants to be able to do without that.
And they bring that up kind of in this movie, but then never follow up on it with Tom Baker elf randomly.
That's right. Oh yeah, there was that healer old elf who was like, and she was like, "You can do magic without having things," and he was like,
The
"Yeah,
magic's in everyone. You're an idiot. Like,
yeah." And Norda should just also be able to constantly be saying
right,
stuff like that.
right. Norda needs things to do. Uh,
Yes. I also maybe don't want to kill snails.
yeah, maybe. I mean, I can see why one member of the party would die. I can see why you would want to do that. And it kind of
Yeah,
makes sense for the comedic relief character to be that character generally.
right. I agree, but I feel like honestly, I thought Norda or Elwood Gutworthy would have been the right people to die because they didn't do anything. So the best they
Right.
could do is like sacrifice. Like Elwood Gutworthy was the dwarf that they just pick up along the way on accident and then just keeps going with them for no reason.
Right. Other than, well, I'm already here.
Yeah, he doesn't like them. He doesn't like what they're doing. He doesn't care about what they're doing, but he's there anyway and he won't leave.
Right. And then he's like, wait, this is for the Empress? Someone's going to pay me.
Yeah. And like if he could like if he's just kind of the grump who's the grump with the heart of gold, like that's
Right.
what his character is.
He just needs to do more for the death to feel like it matters.
Yeah. It's he has to sacrifice himself in a way that is like they weren't expecting him to do it, and then he's just like, no one else is gonna do it. I guess I'll go die.
Right? Yeah. I'll take the bullet for you. It's fine. Everyone
Yeah.
keep going. I can take
Ah,
it.
I guess I get to have some sort of meaning, and you have like this whole grand purpose, and I guess what you're doing is important. Ugh.
Right.
I've lived a solid 274 years. I was hoping to get another 300 or so, but this was pretty good. I don't know how long dwarves live. I don't think it's
Right.
that long.
No, I think it's like 450, I think is their max age in D&D, or at
All right,
least
so I was
in
close.
like 3.5 Pathfinder. I
Yeah.
don't know what it is in 5e anymore because I know that they've been mucking around with all that stuff lately.
They move slowly. They're made out of dirt in their veins and all that.
Right. But yeah, I think that the characters all kind of need more to do. It needs to feel like an ensemble. You're right. It's weird that like every time something important has to happen, it's just like we got one main character, which I kind of get like why you would do that in a movie, but like it's a D&D movie.
What would you like to do with the Jeremy Irons character who has a name? It's
Profian.
Profion. So the movie starts with him creating this magical tool to also let him control dragons.
And
And
then
it
it doesn't
briefly
work.
works. It briefly works and is awesome and then doesn't work and is dumb. And he's like, "Well, I give up on this thing forever despite the fact that it briefly worked."
Right.
I think it should work. It's so much cooler.
If it works, you need to come up with some other reason, like some other reason he's doing what he's doing to like try to interfere with their quest, which might just be as like, well, if I have two of these,
Well, I think it can also function like it's this staff that gives him ultimate power, but it feeds off of magic and it needs to draw on magical things.
right?
And so as the Mageocracy is hoarding components, he's the one who ends up like he's the the master of banking or whatever. That's not it, but like the supplies minister. And so instead of like allowing like all other components to go out into the world, like he's using them to fund his own singular power, and he can't have the empress redistributing components to the people because then he can't have his ultimate power. And if she redistributes, A, he'll be out of a job, and B, he won't be able to have his master power, and none of that is good enough for him. And he wants to get all the resources so that only he has magic, and that's the way it would go.
What if he creates a staff that doesn't control dragons? It controls
Oh,
like
he
other
also
monsters.
great.
Controls doesn't control dragons at all. Controls other monsters, and then he finds out that there is another staff that controls dragons. He's like, well, I want that too. But he like orchestrates monster attacks so he can steal supplies from himself to hide so that other people can't keep track of them. He gets to write it off as like a loss or a theft,
Mhm.
but they just get rerouted to him. You can play around a little bit with that.
Well, you can even have him, he's crafting his staff off of the legends of this one staff that once existed, this ultimate staff for controlling the monsters of the realm. And so he has made his version, but it's a knockoff. And he's like,
Right.
this is great. It's enough.
Yeah. Then he
Uh,
finds out, oh, the real one is actually out there somewhere.
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Hmm.
If I had both, getting that staff, I wouldn't need to hoard magical resources because that one is supposedly its own source of magic.
Right. It's this
Wizard
ultimate
versus,
artifact.
yeah, wizard versus sorcerer.
The magic is the magic is in you.
Yeah. I always wanted, like, one of my pitches for, like, if they ever had Harry Potter run by a not terrible human being would be some sort of person who isn't specifically a wizard. They're themselves a source of magic, and they, like, that, like, it's the next step in, like, chosen one narrative or whatever.
Right.
And so they can't do magic, but everyone around them is better at magic when they're
Like a Blue Lantern.
exactly like a Blue Lantern. It just turns off all the red magic. It's great.
Powers up all the green magic.
Yeah. What was the main Blue Lantern's name? He had a ridiculous name.
Saint Walker is
That's
the
right.
one they
His
deal with
name
most.
is Saint.
Yes,
His first name
Saint
is
Walker.
Saint. Last name
Yeah,
Walker. That's right.
yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I love him. He's just like this very gaunt, white, like very white skinned alien with like the one head tentacle.
Yeah. I really enjoyed him in that 3D animated Green Lantern show that was only around for a season. Ah, he was
Yeah.
so good. That show was excellent.
I never finished it, I don't think. I caught some of it, but like I thought that the animation style was kind of stilted, but like
Oh, it
I
very
should
much
really
was.
give
It
it
was
another chance and like get
very
back
strange
into it.
animation style. The animation style was bad. But then like there's a whole episode in Young Justice that is like canonizes that whole show
Oh,
within
that's
Young
cool.
Justice and it's just like really awesome. Okay.
Nice.
I it
That's cool.
was
I love stuff like that.
yeah, I didn't love that season of Young Justice, but that episode is great.
I'll have to track
Um
it down just because I love Green Lantern stuff.
what do you want Norda's arc to be? The lady elf.
So I think that like one of the big problems with Norda is that she's like completely detached from the other main characters in this movie in the same way that like
Mhm.
Elwood is. So like kind of my pitch to fix both Norda and Elwood is
Great.
that Elwood should be part of a group of thieves with Ridley and Snails from the beginning. It's
Great.
a
Love
group
it.
of three thief guys over here doing their thing, and then the three of them break in and they go off. And that Norda should be like maybe a member of the guard or something, someone that works at the mage school in some capacity that is already friends with Marina. She should already be involved like with Marina and this whole thing, at least on friendly terms, and get dragged into it because she was the guard on duty that night when all this went down. But she already has an established relationship with Marina that we can build off of. Because like I
Love it.
think that's the biggest problem is that Elwood and Norda aren't connected to the like the halves of the group that they kind of should be, the way that the movie is already structured.
Yeah.
Because Norda works for the Empress already. She's part of like some kind of guard structure. She's called a tracker, but like she's part of some kind of imperial guard structure or bureaucracy already. So like just make her part of like
Yeah.
something closer to Marina, and then those two characters have a reason to have a relationship.
She's set up in the movie as someone who's going to be like a bad guy, but then it turns out that she's a good guy.
Right. And
Great.
there's no even reason to do that.
No, it doesn't matter. Like people don't exist in a vacuum. Like the fact that Marina has no one in her life and she's just a free
Right.
floating agent is like that's weird to me.
Yeah. Then Norda and Marina can share than more than a single line.
Great, yeah, that'd be
But
nice.
they're technically not talking about a man. This movie passes the Bechdel test in the bare minimum way.
Yeah. Second follow up question: blue lipstick, yay or nay?
You know what? I'm fine with it.
Okay, good. Well, because as you said, like the character designs themselves aren't terrible.
Yes.
I I would make Norda wear a little bit less ridiculous armor, and I would give
Yes.
Marina not just a dress.
Yeah. I think Norda's boob plate is
Yeah,
the worst design choice in the movie.
correct. It's very weird. It does nothing.
It also looks even more like
Awful.
plastic than Damodar's armor. Damodar's armor looks like plastic.
Yeah. I love the whole like dark enforcer armor that Damodar's wearing.
Yeah. I,
I'm yeah.
I think it could be made to look a little more realistic, but still keep like what it's got going on. Like
Hmm.
it's a good start. Like everything about this movie feels like it's a first draft.
Yeah. That said, the trap that Snails gets trapped in Damodar's room when he goes to steal the map, which I'm not sure why they're stealing the map. They already got the information and they have the secret word,
Right.
and they're the only ones with the secret word. The map is useless to literally everyone else. I don't know why they went after the map.
I don't either. You're right. That doesn't make sense.
But like there's a trap in Damodar's room when he wants to go grab the map, he steps on a carpet and then the carpet turns into quicksand.
Yes.
And it's very cool.
It's a really good practical effect, like a
Yeah.
surprisingly good one in this movie.
Apparently it's oatmeal. And apparently Marlon Wayans could like not look at oatmeal the same way again after this effect because
I believe it.
they basically just made a pit of oatmeal and then painted a carpet over it.
And he just stepped into it.
Yeah, like they only had one take, I guess, but like he steps into it and then just goes like just sinks into it.
I love the way Damodar appears in that frame.
Yeah. Damodar is an intimidating and terrifying opponent.
Yeah. I think that the whispery voice thing is just a little overdone.
Yeah, I mean, I
The
don't
actor's a
love
little too
that.
committed to the whispery voice thing, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you, I'm not gonna be doing that with my recasting. It's just much more just, "Rah, I'm the enforcer guy."
I like the quiet threatening thing,
Yeah,
but it doesn't have to be quite so whispery.
no, it's it's very strange.
Yeah.
I also like I like the juxtaposition of like big enforcer to like smaller big boss bad guy kind of thing.
Yeah, me too. I always like that sort of thing. Like the
Yeah.
more threatening guy is the guy that doesn't look as threatening. I like that sort of thing.
Before the implied mind rape of Marina in the jail, like they did an interesting thing with the character where Damodar's like actually acting a little bit to get Marina on his side. He's like, "Dude, I don't want to go against the Empress. I'm being controlled. Look at me. Look at me."
Yeah. I think that that's the one scene where both of those actors like felt like they had something worth doing
Yes,
and they
very
like
much so.
committed to it a little more and it works.
Yeah,
Like it's the best acting from either of them in the movie.
100%. And then it's completely ruined by what happens immediately after. But like that scene is good, and I like the idea of I want Damodar to just be like, yeah, I just support this guy. That's just what I do. But in this moment, I know that I'm going to lie.
Right.
I want him to pass a deception check.
Yeah. I think the movie would be a lot more I think that his character would be more interesting if Marina buys it in the moment.
Yeah, I agree. Like it should work.
Yeah.
I think there should be a lot. I mean, it's D&D. Like there needs to be playing. Like they do it a little bit. I'm assuming you've watched Vox Machina.
I actually haven't.
Okay,
I haven't watched the animated Legend of Vox Machina series.
fair enough. That's what I meant. But yes, there's a moment in the first season where they can't open a door. They can't lock. They can't get past a locked door. They just and it's clear that they just keep failing their roles. And it's a D&D movie, and this movie takes itself so seriously, but at the end of the day it should be fun. That's one of the things that the new movie does exceptionally well, as
Yeah.
everybody is having fun. Like clearly this is a delight to be a part of.
I think there is kind of a moment like that in this movie, but again, it's only Ridley that's a part of it. When he's in Xylus's maze and he gets to the last thing and it's just like this really complicated looking door and he doesn't
Yeah.
know how to get by it. So what's he do? He just smashes the thing that started the door coming down.
Ah, that was great. And
That's
it's just
actually one
like
of the better moments in the thing.
it is, he smashes like an hourglass that's being held by what's clearly just a glove on an arm through a
Yeah,
wall. I'm like, I really hope he didn't hit the guy holding the hourglass, but great
right.
job.
Poor stuntman.
Yeah. I forgot about that whole sequence with like the thieves guild. And it's like there's honor among thieves, and then the head thief is like, no, there's not.
I actually really like that. I actually think that keeping the Thieves Guild thing in the movie is good.
I agree. So I think for our purposes, our general plot is going to be stealing components, using the magic, having the magic, taking control, big bad guy. And then we have our three thieves of Ridley, Snails, and
And
Elwood.
Elwood.
And Elwood going to steal components because they're valuable, like they're black market, super valuable.
Right. They're gonna sell them to some like closeted wizards out in the streets so they can keep doing their magic, or clerics so they can heal other people in some district in town.
Yeah. And they just happen to be there. The big coincidence of the movie is that they happen to go steal from this magic storehouse on the same night that the people who run the storehouse, Marina and her boss, get attacked.
Yeah.
And but for me, my rewrite of that is that they're being attacked to try to like treat it as, oh, the non-mages are attacking us. We have to consolidate the components even more. They can't have any of them, just as a political move.
That makes sense. I can see that. But like the Empress has kind of figured it out, so she's also like let somebody know, hey, there's this thing that you need to be looking for. There's this thing you got to be doing.
Yeah,
Because one of the things I like about this movie, the way that it's put together, is that the Empress actually has agency in the movie. And
she
ultimately,
does.
she's the one that beats Profian.
Yep,
So, like, I actually really liked that about this movie.
I agree.
I was watching it, and I was just like, oh, wow, yeah. So this young Empress is actually the one that, like, gets the victory at the end of the day. I think that's really nice, actually.
It's a very nice reversal on Neverending Story.
Right? I know. She does look very much like a princess
She
from
looks
Neverending
exactly
Story.
like her.
Yeah. It's the little girl from Hocus Pocus, isn't it? Isn't that who
Oh, is it? I
Thora
don't know.
Birch? She's the Empress in this movie. Isn't that who this is?
I believe you. It is Thora Birch, and she is from Hocus Pocus. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right.
She's the little sister from Hocus Pocus. That's her.
That's amazing. I
It looks
love
just
that.
like her. Like, once you realize that, it's just like, "Oh, wow, yeah."
That's incredible. I love it. Yeah, but like basically Profion is basically setting the stage to do this big massive takeover, and the only one holding him back is Empress Savina, and so she's like, "Come on, guys, go get the thing so we can stop the guy."
Yeah,
And progression of movie,
right,
and then controls monsters, but not dragons, because
but not dragons.
you can't control dragons.
Yeah. That's why
The
she
drag,
has this, like, ancient artifact that's part of the kingdom that can control the dragons. It's not
yeah.
something that can be replicated. It's an artifact.
Okay, so then do we still want the Empress to have something that can control dragons, and then they find another one that can control dragons, or do we want?
I think that that's actually still fine because it gives the Empress, even though it's, like, not a power she would ever use, the fact that she has this power is what sets Profian off.
Okay, all right,
Because that I think that makes sense to me.
that's fair. Okay,
Because even an evil guy, like, needs a motivation, needs a reason that he would go around and do this in a secretive way, because if he
I,
just had all this power or this ability, he would just do it in the open. There
I
needs to be
think that's
something
true.
that she has that holds him back.
I think that's fair, and I agree. But I feel like it needs to the two things that like the power she has, and then the MacGuffin. I think need to be different enough.
Mm.
Like I feel like she has the full authentic power over like the civilized component magic monsters. So there's two kinds of dragons, right? There's the
In the movie, yeah, there's gold and red, and in D&D, it's chromatic, which is, like, red, blue, green, black,
right,
and, white, and then the metallic is gold, silver, brass, bronze, and copper.
yeah. It would
And
make
the
sense for me that
metallic
she can.
dragons are good, and the chromatic dragons are evil.
Yeah. So I feel like I feel like the actual thing that they're going after is a source of not civilized magic, but a source of elemental magic.
Mm.
And that's why it was kind of lost because everything in this civilization is kind of going towards civilization and they like kind of disregard the natural world as having any value. And so Profian not only wants to get this artifact to drain it and give him full control over magic, but also because he doesn't see it as having any value. It's just natural magic, useless, dumb.
Right, he sees no need to use that power other than as a battery.
Correct. So let's say that it doesn't control dragons. What does it do?
I mean, if it can controls the elements, like if it controls natural elements, then you're still looking at something like incredibly powerful and destructive, but in a way that
Great.
Profian doesn't see because he thinks, well, controlling the water and the wind, that's beneath me. I would rather control people's hearts and minds and control their wills. Maybe the thing that this other staff does is it controls like the kind of magic that like rallies societies, keeps
Yeah.
order. That's what the Empress has.
So then, what the Empress has is it can control hearts and minds. It's basically the heart from Captain Planet,
Right.
but like it also can like control dragons and people and everything, and kind of like in large groups. And then
Right.
Profian's magic is kind of emulating that, but isn't quite as strong, and it is artificial.
Hmm.
And then the MacGuffin of the movie will turn you basically into the Avatar.
Right. Yeah.
Great.
But he doesn't see the value in that because he would just rather use it to control people.
Right. I'm just trying to draw a distinction between them
Yeah.
because like the movie as it exists now doesn't have that.
Right. 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 It's just like it's using the chromatic metallic dragon thing, but also just using two kinds of dragons.
Yeah, it's not even that. It's just gold and red.
Right.
Good. Okay. All right. Cool. So then we have that, and it's at the end of the day, we end up getting this big clash between the dark magic, the her artifact magic, and then the elemental magic.
Right.
And somehow it ends up being an actual clash because it is still two incredible artifacts against one, but Profian ends up tapping it, like absorbing all the components of the civilization and is using that and is like overpowered. And when he's defeated, they're now out of components, and everyone in civilization has to rediscover magic through the natural world again.
And that gives us a nice environmentalist message.
Exactly. And that's what we want. They have to foster the land so that they can Tasha's hideous laughter.
Yeah, sure. Just just collapse to the ground laughing for 2 to 10 rounds.
And exactly. And if they didn't take care of their oak tree, they wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah,
And I think
it's
that's what our
important.
movie needs to be. Good.
Yeah,
Let's
because there
not.
needs to be a push and pull between like what the powers here are. There needs
Yeah,
to be some sort of other relationship to them. And then it's like, well, you
yes.
can't do anything without either of them. You need both. You need to keep
Yeah,
these things in balance.
good. Okay, good. I'm on board. Let's talk casting.
Let's talk casting.
So obviously we have to start with Ridley, whose last name is, I swear to God, Freeborn.
Ridley Freeborn.
That is a terrible name.
It sounds like a very stereotypical like human fighter name. Uh,
Well, it's clearly, well, Star Wars is Luke Skywalker.
yeah,
So this is our Star Wars, and this is Ridley Freeborn.
big thumbs up.
Yeah, big ol' thumbs up. So for Ridley Freeborn, I wanted someone who is both cool and impressive, but also can inspire hope. I went with an actor who's in The Get Down, he's in Dope, and he's also the voice of Miles Morales in Spider-Verse. His name is Shamik Moore.
That's a good pick. I was looking at that actor too, but I went with somebody else.
Tell me
Like
who you went with.
what I wrote down. In my mind, like I feel like Ridley needs to be like impetuous, overconfident, charming. Anthony Ramos is who I wrote down.
Oh, I don't think I know who that is.
He plays Uznavi in The Heights. He was also in Hamilton.
Well, I've seen Hamilton. I have not seen In the Heights.
He's very good. He's very fun. He definitely his character in The Heights really comes across as like this kind of overconfident, arrogant guy that at the end of the day has a heart of gold.
Here's why I think we should go with Anthony Ramos. And it's weird. So in multiple in multiple things, he's played a character named Ramon. He's in the new A Star Is Born in 2018, playing a character named Ramon, and he also in 2020 played a character named Ramon Hall. And the reason why that's the movie that gets it is because he's in a movie called Honest Thief.
There you go.
And you know what? Sometimes it's as simple as that that gets the final the final say. Anthony Ramos, truly an honest thief.
Truly.
That brings us to snails. Who do you have for snails?
So I just was kind of thinking like, who do I think would have the energy to kind of play this comedic, this like comic relief character, then ultimately like kind of puts himself in harm's way to save everybody else. And
Mhm.
but who would I want to see do something like that? And the answer is Daniel Radcliffe, because I just want to continue to see him do weird, funny, small projects.
Daniel Radcliffe has been a real theme to all of the castings that I've been doing recently.
I think people just saw weird and are just like, we want to see him do more stuff because this is really
He's so
fun.
good. Yeah,
Yes.
I think it's great. I don't love taking a black character and making it a white guy.
I agree.
So mine, I I took a character who I don't know as being particularly fun, but I think does a good job and performs the job really well. And I feel like if you're going for the non-stereotypical kind of humor of, I think you could go for a Piccolo style of humor where it's like funny without knowing you're funny.
Yeah, the straight man, right? Like that's
Yeah,
the thing.
very
Yeah.
much so. And so this character has been in Obsession. He was in something called Do Revenge, and he is one of Miss Marvel's harem. This actor is named Rish Shaw.
Rish Shaw.
Yeah, I think he was the other descendant from the crystal beings or whatever. He was
Hmm.
the he was the main boo.
Yeah, I haven't watched Miss Marvel. That's like still on my list. I need to catch up on the Marvel stuff really badly.
Well, I will recommend the show that Nick Jimenez, who was the guest on last week's episode, recommended to me, and that's Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. It's very cute.
Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur does look pretty great. I love the
Yeah,
wackier stuff that Marvel has like in
yeah,
their catalog. I want more of it to become more
absolutely
mainstream.
yes. So I would push us towards Rish Shaw.
Yeah.
Cool. So then let's talk about Marina. For Marina, I want someone with much more agency. And
Yes.
I've definitely cast this actress before on this show, but there's just the story of when she goes into the audition room in Runaways when she was playing a feminist kind of character, and she's like, "Okay, so what kind of feminist do you want me to be? Do you want me to be this kind of feminist, this kind of feminist, this kind of feminist? Because I'm pulling from this, and just very smart, very on top of it, and like very clever. And to also make her a wizard would be very fun. She's also in something called How to Blow Up a Pipeline, which I think is great. This actress's name is Ariella Bearer.
Ariella Bearer.
Yeah, Barer.
Oh, she played oh, what is the character's name on
The one
Runaways?
with the
She
Velociraptor.
Yeah, the youngest one. She's great in that.
She's
I
not the
really
youngest one. The youngest one is the younger sibling who punches.
Oh, is he younger than her?
No, the child, because they're all teenagers and one child.
I'm talking about the show. But in
Yeah,
the
no,
show they're like all around the same age. I think she's the youngest in the show.
Is she actually?
I think so.
No, because the mutant,
Because none of them are children.
they're
they're
all
all
teenagers.
teenagers.
But I still think one of them is the youngest of all of them, and it's not her. The Velociraptor girl is not the youngest.
Oh, maybe she isn't.
It's the one with super strength is the youngest.
But yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, she's really good in that. I wish that show stayed as good as the first season, from what I know about the second one.
I wish lots of things about that show. I wish that in the first season they ran away.
Yeah, they're kind of lying to you, right?
Yeah. Who did you have for Marina?
So I had a really hard time with this. I was just like thinking about like actresses that I might want to see more of. And the one that I kind of landed on because I would like to see her do more work is Victoria Pedretti. She plays the youngest sibling in Haunting of Hill House, the one that is spoilers for Haunting of Hill House, I guess. The one that is the ghost, the one that is dead in the first episode, Nell.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, she's really good in that. I just want a character that like I wanted an actress that could be like more serious, but also like have a lot of emotion when she needs to, especially if we keep anything resembling the scene with Damodar.
Oh man, she's going to be in Pony Boy, which I assume is some sort of Outsiders
I
spinoff.
probably
She's been in You, Haunting of Bly Manor, Haunting of Bly Manor, Haunting of Hill House.
yeah
Two completely
she
different haunting things.
yeah I think she plays like a nanny in Haunting of Bly Manor. I think
She plays
the
Danny Clayton, whoever that is.
yeah like the producers and the director of Haunting of Hill House loved her so much that they brought her back to play a role in the next one.
That's great. I love it. I still want to push us towards Ariella.
I'm good with that. Yeah,
Well, on the other hand, the whole purpose of Marina's whole character arc is that she is kind of the establishment and learns to not be.
yeah.
I feel like Ariella is someone who's already kind of the hippie. Well, no, I mean that's the character she plays in Runaways. I haven't really seen her in anything else, but it seems like
Oh, we
her
know
sort
she's
of
really good at
character.
that.
Yeah. Like I feel like she would have been like a great Ridley, for example.
Well, maybe we could table her and make her the Norda. Like she's part of this establishment, but she's also like kind of apart from it in some way.
I think I I think you're right though. I'm just gonna make this Toria Pedretti
Victoria Pedretti.
because that feels more like the sort of character who could have the arc we're expecting her to have,
Mm,
as opposed like, and it would actually be an arc as opposed to with Ariella Bearer. It would just be like, oh, we're fighting for what's right. I'm in.
yeah, yeah. Because I do want to see a character that actually does kind of start from like this like hierarchy and kind of change
Yeah,
their mind. Because I think
yeah,
that's good. Like when you have a story like this,
I agree. Good. Okay, then let's move on to Profion, Jeremy Irons, Scar himself. Who do you
Scar himself.
have to play Profion?
So I wanted someone that I knew could kind of match the same kind of like really big energy that Jeremy Irons has that like can eat up stuff as the villain.
Yeah,
And because I had recently seen The Menu, my brain immediately went to Ralph Fiennes.
Ray Fiennes.
Ray Fiennes. That's yes, Ray Fiennes.
Yeah, I can very much see that. I have Ray Fiennes is a little bit problematic, but that's a separate
Yeah.
issue.
The other thought I had was Giancarlo Esposito.
I mean, I love Giancarlo Esposito. That I would absolutely do that.
Yeah.
I So for me, I went a little bit wormier. Like I
Okay.
want someone who is just like, oh, you shit. And he's been in The Expanse, he's been in Enola Holmes. He's just because he is just the most English guy. And I know him specifically because in Pacific Rim, of the two scientists, he's the one that's not Charlie Day.
Oh, I love him in that movie. He's great.
His name is Bern Gorman. And like in Pacific Rim, even you're like, what are you up to? And he's just not that. But like, I want someone who's just like, no, you don't understand, Your Highness. I am doing it for the kingdom. And I can just
Yeah.
see him just being that Weasley, let's just like manipulating guy. And I think that's
Yeah.
fun.
And I mean this in the best way possible. He's got a face where he can definitely play older than he is.
Yes. And I think we can play around with that. So I
Yeah.
would push us towards Bern Gorman.
You know what? I agree with that. I really like that idea a lot.
But he needs an enforcer. Every Jeremy Irons needs his Damodar.
He does.
And you said earlier that you want kind of the silent enforcer. And who better represents a silent enforcer than Rory McCann from Hot
Rory
Fuzz,
McCann.
Jumanji The Next Level, and The Hound from Game of Thrones.
Ooh, I do like the Hound quite a lot.
And in Hot Fuzz, he is the guy who just says NARP.
Narp. Yarp?
All right, great, good job. Oh, okay, thank you.
I didn't think that would work. Um, I love that idea, actually. I did not think of him. Also influenced by a movie I saw recently, and I'm just like quiet and threatening, is Dave Bautista because I just saw Knock at the Cabin not too long ago,
Yeah,
and it's just like, oh man,
he's
I
so
just want
good.
him to have more work.
I do too. He's so good.
Yes, I just imagine him walking slowly at you, speaking very calmly, telling you what he
Ah,
wants.
it's intimidating. He's a
Yeah,
scary guy
yeah,
if he wants to be.
if he wants to be.
Yeah,
And I think that because he also has the ability to like be kind of disarming, he works in that scene with Marina really well.
very much so. I also, because he is from the Majocracy, like I also find it interesting. Like Damodar in this world is very physical all the time, and like they call him a wizard, but we I don't think we ever actually see
We
him
never
do
see him cast
magic.
magic, but we should. We should see him do some.
We should see him do some, but I want it to all be like enhancement magic.
Yeah.
Like he
I want to
never
see him set
casts.
fire to his sword.
Yes, that, and like make himself like bigger muscles so he can punch harder.
Yeah.
I That's what I think would be interesting. They both could do that. Dave
Yeah.
Bautista is probably the correct cat choice because I think Rory McCann is like 65.
Yeah. Dave Bautista's around 40.
Yeah. I mean, that is the correct answer.
Also, blue lipstick. Come on. You want to see Dave Bautista in blue lipstick.
I do now. That's amazing. I kind of want. What we're actually going to do is we're going to make Dave Bautista entirely blue, except for the lips.
Red lipstick.
No
Blue.
lipstick. All blue. The only part of him that doesn't have any makeup on is the lips. Just a
Just the
complete
lips.
reversal.
Gosh. Even do the inside of his mouth blue.
Uh-huh. He is mainlining blue gushers the whole film.
There you go.
Okay,
I love
so
it.
then next I have our dwarf, Elwood Gutworthy.
I really did. I really felt like I didn't have any good ideas for
Okay,
Elwood.
so I gender swapped Elwood.
Okay.
I wanted someone who is I will also I didn't know that Elwood was going to be fitting in would be like the third in our team of 3, but I want someone who has an entirely different vibe, an entirely different sense of humor, an entirely different build, and is simultaneously funny and powerful and smart. And this actress was on White Lotus. She was on Saturday Night Live for a really long time. She was on Insecure. Her name is, I wrote down Nacha, but I believe it's Natasha Rothwell.
Oh yes, I recognize her. She's in. Is she in the Sonic movie?
Oh man, does she play? Does she
She's
play this
she's
the
she's the
sister-in-law?
sister in Sonic 2.
She's so good.
She's so funny in that.
She's my favorite character in that entire movie. I didn't realize that's who that was.
She's just so put upon the entire time.
She's so good. Now imagine her as a dwarf with an axe.
I mean, I'm into it. So like the one thought that I did have was also to like totally change Elwood's character and make him like kind of a nihilistic grump who's just kind of like,
Yeah.
why are we doing this? We're all gonna die anyway. But I couldn't really think of anyone to like place in that role. But that was like the thought I had was just like change the character completely so they play
Great.
into the dynamic differently.
Let's make Natasha Rothwell do that. That sounds amazing.
That sounds great to me too. That's,
That's
man, those
hilarious.
Sonic movies are way better than they have any right to be.
100%. And I just love the fact it's like, oh no, we didn't get any money from Olive Garden. We just thought it was funny. What?
It's the most ridiculous product placement in the history of cinema.
Because it's not product placement. They just think it's funny.
I want to
like
know whose idea that was specifically.
like they called Olive Garden and they were like, "Hey, we just wanted to let you know we're going to be calling out your name in our movie.
Like 4 times.
We don't have our advertising budget for that. No, we don't need your money. We just want you to let you know that it's happening and you can't stop us. But it's only positive." Okay?
Yeah.
Who was that? It
I
was
have
the
their app on
Sonic
my
movie.
phone. They call out the phone app, delivery, unlimited breadsticks, and then here's a $50 Olive Garden gift card for helping the US government. Like,
Yeah, it's
what?
so good. It's so good. Ah, I love those movies. I should get them on DVD.
I should too. I really enjoyed them. I can't wait for the
Yes.
third one. I
Ah,
need
it's gonna
Shadow
be
the
so great.
Hedgehog.
Yeah, it's gonna kiss a real human woman.
That's right. He better.
Oh man, it's gonna be great. All right, let's talk about Norda.
Okay. So again, I kind of had like some trouble with some of these characters because I feel like I'm not super familiar with a lot of newer actors nowadays because I don't go to the movies as much as I used to. But someone that I thought of because I really liked them in the Power Rangers movie, despite how not great the Power Rangers movie was, is Naomi Scott.
Naomi Scott is great. I will always support Naomi Scott.
I feel like she'd be good, like especially if we make the Norda role like have more to do. She
Hmm.
can be kind of snide or sarcastic, almost like Marina's Spock. I think is kind of something to do with Norda as a character.
Interesting.
Like she can be a little
Hmm.
more like sarcastic and like straight laced, which she kind of already is, but we can like
Yeah.
magnify that more and give her more to do.
Yeah, the way I saw the Nordic character is she very specifically reminded me of another character, and I just then cast that actress.
Mm,
But like she reminds me like because we meet her as a villain, and then she becomes more sympathetic as the story
right.
progresses.
And I think that's the wrong choice. I think that Marina is the one just based on where she's going to sit in the world that we should have like kind of maybe not sure how we feel about her initially, but Norda should be someone that's like a little more likable and feels like a bridge between like especially if she's like a guard or a member of like some kind of military force that Marina's just already friends with.
We need to believe that she is tough and can beat people up and can
Right.
be a member of this guard or the secret police or whatever
Mhm.
she is. And I think Kimberly the Pink Ranger is excellent for that. But who I went with is someone who I originally saw in Agents of Shield, and but she's also in Preacher. She's in Passing, and that's Ruth Nega.
Ruth Nega.
Yeah, Negga.
See, I haven't seen Agents of Shield either.
I Agents of Shield goes off the deep end. Is very strange and like it's definitely just like yeah, you're not going to be really a part of the MCU anymore, but you can keep doing what you're doing.
Who does she play in Agents of Shield?
She is the woman in the flowered dress. Eventually, there was an original woman in the flower dress, and then she gets replaced by Ruth Nega. She plays Raina, Raina, in Agents of Shield, girl in the flower
Hmm.
dress.
Oh, it looks like she's done a lot of theater.
Yes.
I definitely trust your judgment here because I'm not super familiar with like a lot of newer actors.
Well, it's also
I
like
did
what
like
kind of
Naomi Scott in the Power Rangers movie. Her
yeah.
and the guy that played Billy in that movie, I think are the two people doing the best.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, the other thing to keep in mind is that we also have to have a conversation about age. Like, how old is Victoria Pedretti?
I think she's around 30, I think.
Yeah, she's 28. Naomi Scott is 29. Ruth Nega is 41.
It's 41. I think it's a good idea to cast an elf like a little older too. I think that makes sense.
Sure, but like in terms of just like character dynamics and interactions, is that the
Yeah.
interaction we want? Like, do we want someone who's like, because I could see 28, 29 like kind of an older sister vibe, although I don't think Naomi Scott would be believably playing her like an older sister vibe.
Right.
But
It
I
just depends
also,
on how much you want to lean into like the timelessness of an elf or whatever, like in the context of the movie.
yeah, I definitely, yeah, I don't know, that's important. I think they're both good choices, but they're just very different people.
Yeah. And I think someone that looks like definitely looks older than the person playing Marina. I
Hmm.
think that does like leave you open to really do like the older sister vibe, and I think that's good for like relatability. I think
Okay, all right, Ruth Nega, it is.
as much as I like Naomi Scott.
If it helps, Naomi Scott has been used for this podcast many times
It's wild
because
to me
she
that she
is.
was like on the list to be Rey in Star Wars.
Was she?
According to
She
an
would have
article
been.
I read, yeah,
She would have been a really good Ray.
yeah,
She's just incredibly charming and incredibly beautiful and an incredibly good actress. So it makes sense that she's like on the short list for all these different people. Like, because I think she was also supposed to be a Bond girl, right? And I don't even remember if she was or wasn't.
that sounds right. Yeah,
Like, I think she was supposed to be the Bond girl in whatever the newest Bond movie was, and then that storyline got scrapped and she was replaced, and it was like pulling the actress from the previous movie whose name escapes me. I don't know. I feel
Jennifer
like she,
Connelly, the one from
no,
no,
it doesn't matter. But yeah,
doesn't matter.
like because I remember having a conversation where like we were talking when I remade James Bond. We had literally called out Naomi Scott as like she's the perfect Bond girl and she's going to be a Bond girl.
Right,
Like that was
and
what
then
was
that didn't
happening at the
happen.
time, and then that didn't happen, which is a shame.
That is a shame.
So let's talk about Empress Savina. For this role, I went with someone who isn't necessarily as well known, but I wanted someone who we don't expect much from, and then completely over delivers on that lack of expectations. So this actress I went with plays Gilly in Game of Thrones. She was also in Skins. She's also in something called Charlie Says. Her name is Hannah Murray, and Gilly, who is kind of the girl that goes with Sam in
Yeah.
Game of Thrones. And she's great. She's wonderful. She's incredibly sweet. We don't necessarily expect her to like stand up for anyone and fight for anything. And that's kind of like that same sort of vibe we can have for the Empress here. She might be a little bit older than we were expecting. In the movie, she's like the child Empress. And I don't know that we necessarily need a child
Right.
Empress.
I kind of like the idea of the Empress being like as kind of polar opposite of the villain as possible. So like I
Okay.
like the idea of it being like a younger girl, but it needs to be an actress that can like hold their own in a scene with whoever we cast with who we cast as Profian.
Absolutely. So who did you
So
have
like
for Empress Savina?
I put down Sadie Sink.
I don't know who that is. Tell me who that is.
She plays Max in Stranger Things.
That
So
is a
like
show I have
she
not
has
watched.
oh, she was also in The Whale, but I haven't seen that either.
I mean, neither
Um,
have I.
but
It seems sad.
yes, it does. But see, Max's character is like she's rebellious, she's strong-willed, she's confident. She has to constantly like take up space in scenes with all these other like strong actors and actresses, like with Millie Bobby Brown, and she never really
Mhm.
feels like she's left behind in the show.
Good. I
I
mean,
think she's great.
that
She also
that's a
like she
great
looks
argument for her.
young even like for her age, but I think she can really hold her own in a scene with like with an older, more seasoned actor really well.
Great. Let's go with her then. Good. Sadie Sink. So then that's it for actors that I had. I only have writer and director left. Do you have anyone else that I'm missing?
So the other one that I wrote down was Xylus, the Thieves Guild guy.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Who's riffraff in the original in the movie, uh, which he Richard O'Brien is the guy that plays Xylus in the 2000 Dungeons and Dragons movie,
Uh
the
huh.
Thieves Guild guy, and he's riffraff in Rocky Horror.
Oh yes, yes, yes. I did know that.
Um,
Wait, is he in two movies that I've done so far this season? Hold on. Yup. This is going to be very embarrassing for me. So the movie that I remade 2 movies ago, my episode 2, is Dark City. And he is also in Dark City. And
nice.
I didn't recognize him at all. He's so good. Like until you just said right now, "Oh yeah, he's in Rocky Horror Picture Show." I'm like, "You son of a bitch." God damn it. That's embarrassing for me. Okay, so who'd you have for Xylus?
So I think that because he's going to be the leader of the Thieves Guild, and we plant this idea of like honor among thieves, I think he should be someone that like we see and we immediately like are kind of primed to trust. And then I
Yeah.
think it's a fun twist. So I wrote down Sam Elliott.
Oh my god, that's incredible.
Like if just a face and a voice that audiences have been trained to trust for like 40 years.
Yeah. That's his whole job is to provide a trustworthy person. Oh my god, that's great.
Right? Like I thought that was like a great idea. It's just like he's supposed to be the master of this thieves guild, someone that like commands this place. So he's got to be someone that has charisma that we're going to believe.
Oh
Like that has
yeah,
a
for
presence we're going to
sure.
believe. And then like we plant this idea that thieves they're supposed to be honor among thieves, that they get along, that they do things for each other. And then we just turn it around. So like why not use someone that we trust? I just thought that was a great thought process.
Oh, that's so good. I love it. That's amazing.
And
Wait.
then for writer director, I do not know. I could not
Oh
think
really?
of anything. Yeah.
Okay.
That was like maybe the hardest thing. I just sat and looked at it for a while. I was like, I have no idea who I would want to like write and direct this movie.
So I think you'll like my writer because I have a writing team and then I have a director.
Okay.
So my writing team are the Duffer Brothers from Stranger Things.
Okay, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. Like they spent all this time making Stranger Things because it sure seems like they've been wanting to make a Dungeons and Dragons
Right.
movie, but they had to make Stranger Things instead.
Right. And they'll just bring Sadie Sink with them. That's fine.
Right, but they also did like Wayward Pines and everything. It's like they have like the compelling and interesting story, and they have the world building. But they love
Yeah.
but they love Dungeons and Dragons, so like they know how to make it fun, and I think that that's what they can do.
Yeah, all the D&D, like, playing scenes, like, they really understand, like, what is supposed to be fun about role-playing games.
Exactly, and I think that that's important.
Yeah.
And also because my first pitch for who I should get to write this, I looked up, and turns out are the writers of the new D&D movie, so it doesn't matter.
Oh,
It was the guys behind Game Night, and I'm
nice.
like,
What a
yeah,
fun
it makes
coincidence.
sense. And what a crazy idea. Other people thought the same thing I did.
Apparently. Hollywood had the same idea you did.
Yep. So then
Means you're on
the
the right track, Sam.
yeah, I love thinking in the same way as corporate speak. So for my director, I wanted someone who directs a compelling, interesting story that's very character focused, but also has weird, crazy monsters in it. So he's worked on something called Five Fingers for Marseille, something called Nautilus, but I know him because he directed a movie from 2020, which is why no one's really heard of it, called Love and Monsters,
Love and Monsters.
which is this movie about it's a Dylan O'Brien movie where basically the apocalypse happens and something happens and like just animals just get real big.
7
And so
years
it's
after the monster apocalypse.
yeah, so it's a monster apocalypse, like crazy animals everywhere. And Dylan O'Brien decides to leave the shelter and go track down his ex-girlfriend.
Okay.
And the monster design is fun, the movie's fun. It's a better movie than it has any right to be, and it came out in 2020, so like no one's seen it.
Right.
But it's great. And it's directed by a guy named Michael Matthews.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, and so I'm just like, yeah.
He directed a short film called Apocalypse Now Now.
Good, I like it. That's Dungeons and Dragons 2000 2024.
That's right. Dungeons and Dragons 2024.
No, Dungeons and Dragons 2000 2024.
Perfect.
So, to play Ridley Freeborn, we have Anthony Ramos. Snails is going to be Rish Shaw. Marina will be Victoria Pedretti. Profion will be Bern Gorman. Damodar will be Dave Batista. All blue, no blue on his lips. Elwood Gutworthy will be Natasha Rothwell. Norda will be Ruth Nega. Xylus will be Sam Elliott. Empress Savina will be Sadie Sink. All of this will be written by Matt Duffer and Ross Duffer, aka the Duffer Brothers, and then directed by Michael Matthews. That is Dungeons and Dragons 2000 2024. Oh man.
Awesome.
Norman, you gonna go see this movie?
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. Always got to support my boy Dave Batista.
What shape of popcorn bucket do you think we should be offering for this movie?
The D12 because it's underloved.
I agree. And we can't offer people D4s.
I mean, that's just a cone. That's what
Yeah.
you put like the like toasted nuts in. Is a
Yeah.
D4. You get like a D4 for those.
Well, for just this, if you want a sample cup to try any beverage, instead of it being like kind of a circular
Little
cone,
tetrahedron.
it's instead a triangle cone. It's like, oh, you want a sample of a soda? Here you go. It's a super small. Great.
It's got the numbers written on all the points.
You have to drink out of a corner, otherwise you just spill all over yourself.
Right, yeah. Or just snip the bottom off.
Ooh, there you go. That's for people who are going a little crazy and want to prove their worth.
Right.
Good, I love
It's
it.
for the
Norman,
barbarians among us.
yes. Norman, thank you once again for being a guest on Ideal Remake. Tell the people about where they can find you and what you may or may not be working on now that it is the end of May.
Well, with no podcast that I'm on full time right now, but since we're talking about Dungeons and Dragons, if you want to check out some third-party content I've made for Pathfinder First Edition, you can search my name on drivethrurpg.com, and that you can search Norman Mitchell on drivethrurpg.com and find the books that I've written and co-written and contributed to.
Do the books have names?
I've worked on 2 books for Legendary Games, Legendary Druids and Legendary Witches.
Mm-hmm.
And then for I have a partnership with someone that I met through the Legendary Games Discord server, and we produce our own books under Orphaned Bookworm Productions. And we've
Awesome.
released a handful of classes: the Vanguard for Pathfinder First Edition and Fifth Edition D&D, the Spelljack for Pathfinder First Edition and Fifth Edition D&D, And my mind is a blank because I am tired. Uh,
It is much later where you are than it is where I am.
Fair enough.
I haven't even eaten dinner yet, and you're long past that.
It's true. I am.
But good. Everyone should check out Norman's D&D books. Norman is really good at D&D, and we should show him the respect that he so deserves for being so.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. If you're interested in following me, as of the time of recording, Twitter hasn't collapsed, so you can still find me on Twitter at Sam Gasch, SAMGASCH, or you can find Ideal Remake on Twitter, Instagram at Ideal Remake. But more importantly, join the Dueling Genre Discord. It's completely free, and you can jump on the Discord and shout at me about bad decisions I've made or tell me to remake movies because I'm always looking for more movies to add to the list to be remade. It is very good, and I like when people do that. And also, the best thing you can do for this podcast or any podcast is to go on Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. It's been a while since someone left me a review, and it would be lovely if some people left me some more. That would fill my heart with joy. And since this is the episode that's probably going to be coming out closest to my birthday, it'd be a really nice birthday gift for me.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you. And so we will end this episode the same way we end all episodes. Norman, what is your favorite quote from the movie Dungeons and Dragons?
Actually, there's the haves and the have-nots and the gotta gets. I actually liked that line. I
It
thought it
is a
was one
good
of the
line.
better lines in the movie.
It's genuinely a great line. And that's about it. I don't know any other lines.
Right? Yeah, like what else what else is there to say?
Good. All right, Norman. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.